Welcome back. In video number 2, we will begin discussing what 2x2 tables are used for and how they are made. We will also go over the kind of information you can get from a 2x2 table. Let's start with the basics. 2x2 tables, also known as contingency tables, are a very important tool in epidemiology. They are used to compare exposure and outcome groups during a study and can be used to calculate different rates or ratios, which we will get into a little bit later. Remember that fractions and ratios are an important part of using 2x2 tables. So if you feel like you need some additional practice in this area, please refer to the first iPrep video series on fractions. This is a 2x2 table in its simplest form. You can see it gets its name from being 2 columns across by 2 rows high in size. You will use this table to chart data that you gather when reading a word problem or research paper to find the numbers that belong in cells A, B, C, and D. Note that whether someone has the outcome of interest becomes our column label, and whether someone has the exposure of interest is our row label. Once filled in, you can use this table to perform calculations. This will be a big part of all your Intro to Epi exams. Here's a breakdown of what each of these letters means. Cell A shows people who have both the exposure and the outcome of interest. Cell B shows those who have the exposure but not the outcome of interest. Cell C is those who are not exposed but have the outcome. And cell D is the individuals who are not exposed and also do not have the outcome we are studying. We will be using these letters to substitute values in 2 main calculations we will learn in just a little bit. So it is important that the values are always kept in this specific order. You would not want to mix up the exposed and unexposed rows. It is also important to note that the columns referring to outcomes can be substituted with the words cases and controls. You will see different terminology sometimes depending on the study you're reviewing. Here we get into what an expanded version of the 2x2 table looks like. This just adds rows and columns for your totals. The bottom right cell then provides the total number of people included in the study. Having these totals ready will make your calculations a bit easier. This template may also be handy to have around when doing homework or quiz questions. Now, using what we have learned so far, let's practice filling out a 2x2 table. Take a moment to pause the video and see if you can fill out this table, starting with the exposure and outcome of interest. Let's start by reading the problem. You're performing a study assessing the link between smoking and heart disease. There are 200 people in your study total. 100 of them are smokers, 75 of whom have heart disease. 10 of the non-smokers have heart disease. Now I'd like to go through the information given piece by piece and start by filling out what we know. We know our exposure of interest here is smoking. So we fill that out here. We also know that the outcome of interest is heart disease. So yes, heart disease, no heart disease at the top here. We know that we have 200 people total, so that would go down here where our total population sits. We have 100 smokers total, so 100 with the exposure. We know out of those 100 smokers, 75 have heart disease, so those would go here. Now we know that 10 of the non-smokers have heart disease. And that is here. Great, so then we can find the missing pieces of our puzzle using these known values. For the first column here, we know 75 plus 10 is 85. We know 100 minus 25, or 75 would be 25 here. We can find our other total here, based on what we have down in the bottom, our total of 200 here. then we know that this would be 90. And basically, you're just running through all this math to fill out your table and make sure it's complete. It's really common in Intro to Epi that you will only be given a few pieces of the puzzle, so you have to find the rest before you can continue. So to recap video 2 in our 2x2 table series, we learned the basics of 2x2 tables, how to label them and what each cell means, and the importance of adding row and column totals. We also practiced filling out a 2x2 table using a limited amount of information. Please now continue to video 3, where we will discuss incident rates and rate ratios.